before I talk about this lovely machine that Zach now has, this KTM, I'm going to talk about the bikes that he's had and the reason why we got them. Before we bought Zach's first bike, there were a couple of non-negotiables in terms of buying a bike. The first one, that had to have electric start. I believe it's important for a beginner, or to make it as easy as possible for a beginner rider, an electric start is always a good way to go, instead of them having to kick it, particularly when they drop it. It's a carbureted model and it floods. So electric start was the first thing. The second thing was getting a 4-stroke. Again, I believe a 4-stroke is easy to ride for a beginner rider. 2-strokes may be lighter, but with power bands and some of the earlier models, etc., a 4-stroke is important to get. Now, Zach's first bike was a CRF 150F 2007, which we bought off a friend of ours, and it was a great wee bike. It's a Honda, small wheel. In fact, it was a lot smaller in those days, but went very well. Handled nicely, had plenty of power, being a 150, and a great learner's bike. The second bike that Zach moved to, because I believe we needed to get him onto a big wheel bike as soon as possible. Certainly, if you can, start on a big wheel, it's better, particularly for handling and going over terrain. The second bike was a 2007 DRZ 250. We were fortunate enough to buy one out of Ashburton that had only 30 hours on it and sat in a shed for a long time and was virtually brand new. Again, a very good bike. At that time I was riding the Ktm Exc-f, not quite as much power, but still plenty of power for the 250. Went very well, it's very reliable. From there, Zach moved on to the Ktm Exc-f 250S that I was riding. The main reason being that we had to sell one of the bikes because I wanted to move into the WR, and we moved Zach on the Ktm Exc-f 250 so they had slightly more power. Had been dyno jetted and had a 300 exhaust on it. It was a bit more better suspension, so slightly heavier. It was a dual sport, but again a very good bike. So that's why we moved Zach onto that, and then he came onto this bike, which I'll talk about in a minute. First thing I want to say is that all those bikes, all 3 different brands, but they're all good bikes, and every brand has good bikes, and it's just a matter of choosing the right one. Certainly the bikes that we've had, both Honda, Suzuki and Kawasaki, have been good bikes. But the next move was into this bike here, the KTM. 2011 KTM 250 Exc-f, so it's an enduro model. Very hard to find, but certainly a step up in terms of being a lot lighter, and the suspension on these bikes is very good. The other thing I will mention at this time is that it's important, if you're getting into riding, don't take the easy option and get a motocross bike if you're going to do trail riding. Yes, you can do motocross fine, but if you're doing trail riding, don't get a motocross bike. The gearing's different, the power's different, everything's different. Get a trail bike or an enduro bike, you're going to find it a lot easier to ride. Now this bike here came from Invercargill. Sight unseen that we had a very nice person, his name was Andrew Johnston, who looked over the bike for us and vetted it for us, and we're very happy with what we ended up with. This bike, even though it was 2011, had 115 hours on it when we bought it. It's got about 140 on it now. It pretty much came as you see it. We did have to make some additions. First one, and for some reason KTMs don't put skid plates on their bikes, so we had to put the skid plate on it. It's necessary, particularly if you're doing going over rocks and stuff like that. Important to have a skid plate and protect your motor. The next thing we put on it was the rear Krieger back strap. Again, nothing to hold on to on the back of these bikes. It's all plastic and framed, and you start wrangling it with these things or putting your hand on the muffler, you're going to burn yourself. So it's important to have a back hand rear strap. And I recently added and made one myself, a front strap just out of some webbing, and this works perfectly fine. You can buy them, but they're $30-40 each, so they're not cheap. I made that out of a webbing and it works fine. Handguards. The bike didn't have handguards on it. We've had a couple of sets of handguards. These ones are probably the best in terms of value for money. The Barkbuster Egos. We had some other ones on that didn't wrap around, and when we had them on, we broke a lever just by dropping it. So the wraparounds are definitely the best. As you can see, these handguards take a hammering, and but these are pretty robust and sturdy. You can replace the plastics. They're about $30–40 to replace the plastics. I actually picked these up very cheap for about 30 bucks second hand from a guy who had 2 sets. The bike in itself, the other thing we did is we had, come around Zach, this is an Exc-f muffler off a motocross bike. The main reason I actually put it on is because it had a sparkle reset, and the original one we had didn't, but it actually just does help the bike breathe a bit better. And we've got the carb retuned for that Exc-f muffler. Straight away we knew how good the bike was. Suspension is just fantastic on these bikes, and in terms of performance, the other bikes, not a patch on this KTM. I've ridden Wr450s. They're certainly a lot better performance wise than a WR, and they are good bikes. These are just the next level up. This bike is an enduro bike, can be made road legal. We got all the road kit with it, which is normally taken off. If you wanted to make a road legal, you could, but I guess that's a story for another day in terms of the compromises you make on tyres and gearing and stuff like that when you ride them on the road. As I said, it goes great. Zach loves it, I've ridden it, I don't mind riding it myself. It's not quite the same torque, or low down powers at 450, but up in the mid and high revs, a lot of power. And these engines like to rev, so rev out to 13 or 14,000 revs, where the car electric would only rev, really light it up to 9. That's where the power is. They'll still pull, but you have to be going to corners in the right gear to get the pull out of the corner, otherwise you'll be kicking down mid-corner. But yeah, great wee bike. We've put about 30 or 40 hours on it so far, no problems. Just your regular oil changes, and filter, and clean air filters. So that's the history of Zach's bikes to date.
Welcome to the second part of the video. Today I'm going to talk about why I love my KTM so much and compare it to my other bikes. There are 3 main categories which I'll be talking about today: suspension, power and weight. Firstly, suspension. Suspension is very important in trail riding and can make all the difference when riding a dirt bike. As you become a better rider, stiffer suspension is better because it absorbs the bumps better when you go faster. The great thing about the KTM is that the suspension is already set up stiff, that goes along with their ready to race motto. Secondly, power. Compared to my other 250s, the KTM has a lot more power, particularly at the top end, with most of the power in the middle to high rev range. It still pulls well low down, but not as good as a 450, so you have to make sure that it goes into the corners in the right gear, so you come out of the corner in the middle of the rev range. My dad says up top, the KTM has similar pulling power to his Wr450. Thirdly, weight. The KTM weighs 105 kg, which is about 15 to 20 kgs lighter than my Ktm Exc-f, which is the dual sport bike. This may not seem like much, but it makes a lot of difference, especially when handling the bike in both slow manoeuvring and fast-paced riding, and also when picking up the bike. Because of all these things, I've improved significantly since I've got the KTM. I've loved my bike ever since I've got it, and I was so shocked by the performance compared to other bikes that have the same engine size. So that's all for this video. Be sure to check Traction out. Thanks for them for sponsoring this video. I'll see you next time.